I was about halfway through my shift when I pulled out of the diner, gripping a cup of what they claimed was coffee. I don't know what the hell they brewed that from, but calling it coffee was a stretch. It tasted like cold dirt mixed with burnt rubber. Every sip made me angrier, but I needed something to keep me awake, so I kept drinking. The highway was empty, just me and my thoughts. The kind of stretch where you don't see anyone for miles, and it feels like the world's forgotten this road exists. I checked the time again. Too late to care. Too early to stop. That's how it always was. My eyes were burning, my body screaming for sleep, but I had to make it to the next stop. Always pushing. No rest for idiots like me. Then I saw her. A figure, standing there in the dark, just a blur at first. I squinted through the windshield, cursing under my breath. People don't just stand on the side of the road out here, not unless they're up to something. But there she was, a young woman, drenched like she'd been standing in a downpour no one told me about. Everything in me said, "Keep driving, Ray. Don't be a dumbass." But of course I was already slowing down, like some instinct kicked in before my brain could catch up. Stupid, stupid idea. I was already feeling uneasy, and I hadn't even rolled down the window yet. There was something about her eyes, hollow, like she was staring through me, not at me. My gut churned, but I told myself it was just the fatigue playing tricks. "You all right?" I asked, already knowing I shouldn't have stopped. "I need a ride," she said, her voice flat, like she'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. "To the memorial up ahead. I died there." I barked out a laugh, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know how else to react. She died there. "Yeah, okay. Great." Another crazy. But there was something in her voice that made me shut up real quick. No joke in her tone, no smile, no nothing. She climbed in without waiting for me to say yes, settling in the passenger seat like she'd done it 1,000,000 times. And just like that, it was colder in the truck. No small talk, no shifting around. She just sat there, staring straight ahead, like some statue. My anxiety kicked in hard. I gripped the wheel like my life depended on it because, hell, maybe it did. I glanced at her every few seconds, trying to figure her out. She looked too delicate for this kind of life, like someone who didn't belong on a road like this. And that only made me more nervous. I couldn't shake the feeling that she shouldn't be there, that none of this made sense. To break the silence, I cracked a joke. Something dumb about how bad the coffee was. Not even a smirk. She just kept staring forward, like she didn't hear me or didn't care. My palms were sweating, my heart racing, but I kept driving, pretending like everything was fine, even though I could feel something was very, very wrong. 10 miles later, she spoke again, her voice flat as ever. "This is it." I pulled over, confused. We were in the middle of nowhere. Trees and darkness, not a single sign of life. Then I saw it. Off to the side, barely visible in the moonlight, was a small memorial. It was easy to miss unless you were looking for it. My stomach flipped when I realized what I was looking at. There was a picture. A young woman, her clothes soaked, her eyes hollow. It was her. Same face, same dead eyes. My heart dropped. This couldn't be real. I stumbled out of the truck, heart pounding in my chest, staring at that photo like it might explain everything. But when I turned back to say something, anything, she was gone, just gone. No sound, no movement, no nothing. It was like she'd never been there at all. I checked the truck, the back seat, everything. Nothing. Just me, the cold night air, and the silence pressing in on me. My hands were shaking as I slammed the door and took off. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was the coffee. Maybe I'm just losing it. Too many hours on the road, too many sleepless nights. But I couldn't shake her face, the emptiness in her eyes. It was too real, too vivid. And no matter how fast I drove, that feeling didn't go away. Something told me I wasn't losing it. Something told me I should have kept driving. I thought I could shake it, you know. Just chalk it up to one bad night. Maybe blame it on that sludge they served me at the diner. But the thing is, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Every damn time I closed my eyes, there she was. Same hollow stare, the same soaking wet clothes. It started messing with my sleep, like every time I'd drift off, I'd see her, just standing there, watching me. It got so bad that even when I was awake, I felt like she was still around, somewhere, watching. I couldn't shake it. A few days later, I met up with some of the guys. We're at a truck stop, just shooting the breeze between runs, and I decide to tell them about it. Joe, the guy's a jock through and through, laughs at me like I'm soft. He says I need to toughen up, maybe lay off the late-night horror movies or some crap. But Mike, he gets real quiet. He's not one for much talk anyway, but when he looks up, there's something in his eyes. "You seen her too?" he asks, dead serious. I didn't know what to say. Mike's not the type to mess around. I shrug, trying to act like it didn't freak me out, but I know I'm not fooling anyone. Mike goes on, tells me there's stories about that road, how truckers see things that ain't supposed to be there. He starts talking about this old legend, how a girl got killed on that stretch of Highway 47, hit by a trucker who never stopped. She's supposed to still be out there, trying to find a ride back to the place she died. I laughed it off at first, but something about Mike's face, man, it stuck with me. That serious look, like he'd seen something too. Later that night, I found myself digging around, looking up news articles and rumors about accidents on that road. And there it was, the story, the girl. Her face in the old newspaper clipping matched the one I saw. Same clothes, same dead eyes. I felt the hairs on my neck stand up. I wasn't imagining it. After that, things got worse. I started seeing her everywhere. In the rear view, in reflections, hell. Even out of the corner of my eye while I was driving. Every shadow felt like her. Like she was following me, creeping closer with every mile. I couldn't shake it. It wasn't just in my head. It was real. It had to be. I got obsessed. Started driving back to the memorial late at night. Just sitting there, staring at that little shrine by the side of the road. Each time I went, the air got colder, the silence heavier. I knew she was still out there. I could feel her, waiting for me. One night, I saw it. Movement, right there at the memorial. Just a flicker, like someone was standing there, and my heart damn near exploded in my chest. I got out, stepped closer, and there she was. The same girl, just staring back at me. I panicked. I don't even remember getting back to my truck, but I was inside, hands shaking, and I could hear her voice in my head, telling me she wasn't done with me, that I had to take her somewhere. I tried to push it out of my mind, but it was too late. I was hooked, couldn't stop thinking about her, about why she was haunting me, why she chose me. So, I dug deeper, found out more about the accident. Turns out they never found the driver who hit her. Rumor was it was a trucker who fled the scene. That's when the pieces started coming together, and I realized maybe she picked me because I was a trucker. Maybe she thought I was connected to her death. I started spiraling, couldn't focus, couldn't sleep. Every time I was on that highway, I felt her. Even when I knew she wasn't there, I felt her. Like she was following me, always just behind me, waiting. Joe and Mike noticed. They tried talking me into taking a break, but I wasn't having it. I was too deep, too caught up in it. One night, I stopped at a diner after a long haul, overhearing some old-timers talking about strange sightings on Highway 47. They mentioned a girl standing by the road, always in the same spot. They said no one picks her up, and the ones that do, some of them disappear. That's when I knew I wasn't the only one. I couldn't let it go. I had to end this. I had to know why she wouldn't leave me alone. So I went back to the memorial, this time with a plan. I was going to confront her, demand answers, figure out what she wanted from me. When I pulled up, the air got heavy again. My breath fogged up as I stepped out of the truck, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. And then she appeared. But this time, she looked different. More desperate. More angry. She wasn't just staring anymore. She was reaching out for me. My heart was slamming in my chest, but I wasn't running this time. I stood my ground, yelling at her, asking why she wouldn't leave me alone. But she didn't say anything, just pointed at the road. I turned and saw headlights, a truck barreling toward me fast. For a second, I thought it was going to hit me, just like it hit her. But at the last moment, it swerved, missing me by inches. I stumbled back, my mind racing. She wasn't haunting me. She was warning me. When I looked back at her, her face had softened. And then she was gone. Just like that. Faded into the night, leaving me there, alone and shaking. I don't know if she's at peace now. Hell, I don't even know if I imagined the whole thing. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm never driving that road at night again. I went back to my life, tried to forget, but her face, that empty stare, it's with me. Always. I told my story on a trucking podcast. Figured maybe I'd warn others. Now it's an urban legend. Some believe me, some don't. But every time I get on the road, I wonder if she's still out there, waiting for the next unlucky driver. Story 2. It started like any other night. Jimmy was driving home after a long, mind-numbing day, hauling freight. Same road, same traffic, same idiots cutting him off. His head was already pounding before he even got into the truck. This wasn't the night for patience. He was already pissed just thinking about the long drive ahead. The way people on the road acted like their lives mattered more than his. Swerving, speeding, and all Jimmy could do was grind his teeth and push forward, trying to drown it all out with the rumble of the truck. Then the night got quiet. Too quiet. It was like the air just sucked all the noise out. No wind, no nothing. That's when he felt it. Something in his gut, like a cold knot forming, telling him that something was way off. It wasn't the kind of quiet that you wanted after a long day. It was the kind that crept into your bones and made you feel like something bad was about to happen. And then he saw her. This girl, Emily, standing dead in the middle of the highway like she belonged there. Weird old-fashioned dress that didn't make any damn sense. The headlights caught her at the last second, and Jimmy's foot slammed on the brake. Tires squealed and he cursed out loud, knuckles white on the wheel. Who the hell stands in the middle of the road like that? And more importantly, why? He sat there idling, staring. Something told him to drive past, but he pulled over anyway, his mind already doubting her. This girl, here, alone in the middle of the night. His brain was screaming that none of it added up, but his foot was already easing off the brake. He cracked the window, glanced over, and before he knew it, she was sliding into the seat beside him without a word. Jimmy's skin crawled the second she got in. That smile she had, it was wrong. Not the kind of wrong you laugh off either. It was plastered on her face like someone told her to smile but forgot to tell her when to stop. He tried to shake it off, thinking back to weirder rides he'd had before. He'd seen some shit on the road. Maybe she was just one more story. So, rough night? He said, trying to fill the silence. But Emily? Nothing. Just that creepy smile and a nod, like she wasn't even listening. The silence was thick, every second dragging like it was pulling him down. He kept talking, rambling about the day, how the load was heavy, how traffic sucked. But she didn't give him anything back, just sat there, stiff as a board, like a mannequin propped up for the ride. Jimmy's anxiety started creeping in. The more he looked at her, the worse it got. She wasn't just sitting there. She was forcing it. That smile was too tight. Her movements too slow. His mind started spinning. What the hell was her deal? Was she dangerous? He felt the sweat building on his neck, his heart hammering harder as he kept glancing at her, trying to make sense of it all. By the time they neared a rundown gas station, she finally spoke. "I died years ago," she said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Jimmy's stomach flipped. His mind screamed what the fuck louder than it ever had before. This chick was nuts. Maybe dangerous. But dead? No, that's crazy. She was messing with him. Had to be. He pulled into the gas station, his hands gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles cracked. The station looked like it hadn't seen life in years. Dark, faded, abandoned, just like her. And then she pointed to something, her face eerily calm, and that's when he saw it. A memorial sign. Faded, broken, but still there. And on it, same girl, same creepy smile. Jimmy felt his heart jackhammer in his chest, his mind screaming to get out of there, to stop whatever sick game she was playing. But when he glanced back at her seat, she was gone. No sound, no door opening, just gone. Like she had never even been there. His mind went into overdrive. Cameras, pranks, anything that made sense. He checked the seat, even the back. Nothing. Not a single trace of her. His heart was slamming against his ribs, and that cold knot in his gut was growing. This was some next-level mess. His head spun with 1,000 possibilities, none of them good. Without thinking, he floored it, driving off from the gas station like a bat out of hell, refusing to look back. He knew no one would believe him. Hell, he barely believed it himself. He wasn't about to tell anyone and risk sounding like a lunatic. His foot pressed harder on the gas, but no matter how fast he went, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that he wasn't alone. His mind kept replaying the night, picking apart every second, every detail. Was she real? Was she a ghost? He was obsessed now, stuck in this loop, and it was driving him out of his mind. Just when he thought he might finally calm down, headlights caught something up ahead. Another figure? His heart skipped a beat. Not again. But as he got closer, he realized it wasn't another hitchhiker. It was a bunch of dumb jocks, laughing, stumbling around in the middle of the road like they owned the place, throwing bottles and acting like idiots. Jimmy let out a deep breath, muttering under his breath, "Idiots!" Somehow that made him feel a little better. At least they were real. But deep down, he knew the night wasn't over yet. Something was still wrong. The road stretched ahead, quiet again after that run-in with the jocks. Those idiots. They tried to flag me down, waving their arms like they were stranded, but I wasn't stopping, not after what just happened with Emily. My foot pressed harder on the gas. One of them hurled something at the truck, probably a bottle or some junk. I didn't care. Let them throw rocks for all I cared. They'd already pissed me off just by being there, laughing like morons in the middle of the road like they had no sense. I wasn't in the mood for their crap. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of them, but there was someone else further down the road, standing there. Another person? It didn't seem right. Whoever it was, they barely stood out, like they were blending into the darkness. My eyes flicked back to the road ahead, but my pulse quickened. My gut was telling me this wasn't over. Then the radio buzzed, static. That crackling sound filled the cab, and I smacked the dashboard, annoyed. The radio was always on the fritz in this old truck, and I was used to it, but this time something was off. Through the static, a voice cut in. Not just any voice, Emily's voice. "I was killed here. My boyfriend never made it." Her voice echoed in my head, cold, lifeless, but clear as day. My stomach dropped, and my foot slammed down on the gas harder. I couldn't hear this. I didn't want to hear it. The truck felt different now, like the wheel was fighting me, pulling slightly to one side. Something was wrong with the controls, and my anxiety spiked. I didn't trust anything around me. The road, the truck, myself. None of it made sense anymore. The engine's hum didn't sound right either, and I felt like I was losing control. I couldn't stop checking the mirrors, couldn't stop the paranoia crawling up my spine. And then, just for a second, there she was. Emily. Her pale face in the rear view. That creepy grin stretched too wide, just staring at me from the back seat. I whipped my head around, but she was gone. Nothing. My heart pounded in my ears, and my hands gripped the wheel tighter than ever. The truck swerved. I yanked it back onto the road, but my pulse wouldn't calm down. I had to pull over. I slammed the brakes near a dark, abandoned rest area, the truck jerking to a stop. My hands shook as I sat there, breathing hard, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. It's all in my head, I thought. Just some sick joke my brain's playing after a long day. But I wasn't buying it. I checked my phone. No signal. Of course. Classic horror movie crap. No way out. I cursed under my breath and kicked the dashboard in frustration. But I knew damn well I wasn't stepping out of that truck. No way in hell. The paranoia clawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was still around, pulling the strings, messing with my head. Every sound, every shadow outside, every tick of the engine made my skin crawl. I was losing it, questioning everything. Then it happened again. The doors locked, on their own. I heard the click and froze. My breath caught in my throat and panic shot through me like electricity. I yanked on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The air in the truck felt thick, like it was closing in on me. My chest tightened, and I gasped for breath. I thought I was having a heart attack. The radio came back to life, crackling and buzzing, but this time it wasn't just static. Emily's laugh spilled out, broken and distorted. It was the most messed up sound I'd ever heard, like it came from somewhere else entirely. My heart raced, my hands slamming into the window, trying to break it. Nothing. I was trapped in my own truck with the ghost of a dead girl. Just when I thought I'd lose my mind, headlights appeared in the distance. Relief hit me like a wave. Maybe someone else was out there. Maybe they could help. The lights got closer and I recognized the beat-up car. The jocks. Great. They pulled up beside me, still laughing like idiots, banging on the windows and shouting things I couldn't hear. But then one of them froze. His face went pale, eyes wide. He saw her. I knew he did, because his laughter stopped dead, and the terror on his face told me everything. They peeled out, tires squealing, leaving me alone in the dark again. But at least now I knew I wasn't crazy. They saw her too. Emily was real. The doors clicked again, unlocking themselves. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling as I reached for the ignition. I wasn't sure if I could trust it, but what other choice did I have? The air felt normal again, like whatever had been suffocating me had lifted. I started the truck, hesitating for just a second before pulling back onto the road. I was done. Done with this place, this night, everything. I wasn't coming back. As I drove, I glanced in the rear view one last time, and there she was, Emily, her smile wider than ever.